Hey, hey, Greek students. I hope you're doing well. I do want to remind you that after our last class, and Mounts makes a point of this, is that you are in the fog. And you're like, look, Dr. Hill, you don't have to tell me that I'm in the fog. I know I'm in the fog. I'm in the Greek fog. It is thick. And I get that. And just understand that as you move through Greek, that it will maybe take a week or two before you will kind of feel like you understand the concepts in totality. And it's kind of a very discouraging thing about Greek is that you've got to work your way through before you realize, oh, I got this. So at a certain point, what happens is you go back 2 weeks and you reread those chapters. You're like, oh, I get it now. It all landed. It all kind of sunk in and it's making more sense. So even though you're in the fog, the only way through, you might be praying, God, get me out. Get me out. There is no out. It is only through. Go through the fog, everybody. Trust the process. Okay, so in a light of trusting the process, there's one little help that Mounts will give in the book about noun rules, the rules of these noun rules. He has 8 noun rules. He has given us 6 of them. The first of those is in chapter 6, 6.20, and then that's 1 through 3, and then 7.12 he gives 4 through 6, 4, 5, and 6. And so if you want a full list of the noun rules, you can go to the appendix on page 422. But I just want to walk through those first 6 noun rules. Some people have found them very helpful along the way. I will not quiz you on the noun rules, but some people find them helpful along the way. There's kind of patterns that we note along the way. So I'm going to go smaller here, and I'm just going to walk through these noun rules and show them on the full paradigm, okay? And this should be recognizable. These are a masculine noun, which is logos, paradigmatic masculine noun, a paradigmatic feminine noun or two, which would be graphe and graphe and hora, one that ends in an alpha or in an eta, one that ends in an alpha, and then a paradigmatic neuter noun, which is ergon. Okay. And then we have the article in front of that. So I just want to use this full paradigm to note what Mounts is saying about the noun rule. So noun rule number 1 is the idea of declensions, okay? And you can see the declension numbers up here. And rule number 1 is that nouns that are first declension nouns have stems that end in alpha or eta. So hora is a feminine noun. It's a first declension noun, and it ends in an alpha. Because it ends in an alpha, it is first declension. Graphe ends in an eta, and because it ends in an eta, it's first declension. Stems that end, and the though he doesn't say this, well, we'll get there. So that's declension. So first declension is alpha and eta. Second declensions are stems that end in omicron. So in this case, masculine and neuter are second declension because they have stems that end in omicron. Loga is the stem, and erga is the stem. Okay? There are going to be nouns, and we're going to learn about these in chapter 10, that have stems that end in consonants. And we're leaving those alone until chapter 10 because they operate on some different rules with some various endings that, and they kind of, when you add endings to those stems, they do certain things. And so we're going to look at that all in chapter 10. That's coming. So make room in your brain for third declension. But for right now, we only have first declension, and this is how we're looking at it. Okay. Now, here's the second rule. Rule number two is that every neuter word, so we're looking at neuters, okay, just neuters. Rule number 2 has to do with neuters. That neuter words have the same form in the nominative and the accusative. So look at ergon in the nominative, and in the accusative, you have ergon. Same thing with the article, ta and ta. So neuter, nominative, and accusative are identical. Look down here in the plural. Neuter nominative, plural, is erga, and down here in the plural is erga. Ta and ta. So nominative and accusative neuters are identical. Neuters, just this column. Neuters, nominative and accusative are identical. So the idea is if I ask you to fill in this chart, if you can fill in this box up here, you can fill in this box right there. If you can fill in this box, you can fill in this box. Okay. And then rule number 3 is that all, again, about neuter words, and particularly neuter plurals. Almost all neuter words end in alpha in the nominative and accusative plural. So this alpha ending here as a neuter plural is really common. So ta, when you see ta, that alpha, that ta, that's neuter plurals. Neuter plurals are just beautifully regular in that sense. Okay, so those are rules 1 through 3. You can see some people find those helpful for those patterns. Other people just kind of realize those patterns as they study this, and as you kind of go over this, you'll start to see some patterns. Okay, all right. So those are in 6.20. Rules 4 through 6 are in chapter 7, 7.12, and here they are. And rule number 4 is in the dative singular, the iota subscripts if possible. So let's go to the dative singular. And now we're going to look across. We're not just looking at neuters down. We're looking across at dative singular. And what we're going to see is that the ending, if we go back up here to the ending for a dative singular is iota, 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 right? Iota, iota, iota. But that ending, as we look at our full paradigm down here. Here we go. As we look at the full paradigm, that iota will subscript if possible. Okay? And in the first and second declensions, it will subscript. So you get this, it subscripts under the omega there. In the third declension, what we're going to find out is that this iota will not subscript because it'll follow a consonant, and that'll just tack on there. So it won't subscript in the third declension. But in the dative singular, the iota subscripts if possible. Okay? So that's rule number 4. Rule number 5 kind of goes with that, and that is that vowels will lengthen if will oftentimes change their length. They will ablaut. The rule number 5 is ablaut. And so the final stem vowel with logos is loga, so loga. But when you get down here to the dative and you have this iota subscripting, that this vowel will lengthen to an omega. Okay? So, and here, this eta will lengthen and the iota will subscript. The alpha will lengthen. Even though that alpha is there, it just subscripts there, and then here the omicron lengthens. It ablouts. Okay? You go down here to that omicron, again, in the genitive plural, will lengthen to lagon. This vowel will lengthen to an omega, and this vowel will lengthen to an omega as well. So vowels will lengthen, they will ablaut. And then rule number 6 is in the genitive and dative, the masculine and neuter will always be identical. So the genitive and dative, so here's the genitive. Now we're just looking at the genitive and the dative, and we're looking at the masculine and the neuter. And what we're finding is that the endings will be identical. U and u, o and o. So, and the article to and to and toe and toe are identical. Same thing down here. Tone and tois and tois. So genitive, masculine, and neuter are always identical with the article and with the endings. Okay? So those are the first 6 rules, noun rules. Some people find them very helpful. I'm not going to quiz you on them. If they're helpful to you, great. If they're not helpful to you and you are just like this, then just put it on the back burner. Don't worry about the rules. But study this chart and look at how the article behaves. Look at how a masculine word like logos behaves as it goes down. How these feminine words like graphe and hora behave as they go down. And then how a neuter word ergon goes down. And we will continue to press through the fog. And hopefully you're doing well today. A little bit of Greek every day. And hopefully this is helpful. All right, we'll see you guys next class.